guys, I'm Junie the Orange Huntress, and today I'm going to show you different compound butters that are going to impart amazing flavors to your venison steaks and make them a little bit more fancy. Valentine's Day is coming up and I get super excited about fancy food on Love Day, don't you? So I thought I'd invite some compound butter to join our party. Compound butter is basically whipped unsalted butter mixed with seasonings and flavors that complement whatever you're serving it with. They can be used on everything from meat to veggies to breads. They're pretty to look at and they enhance your dish's flavor. Let me share some tips with you for how to make compound butter. Make sure your compound butter is room temperature because cold butter won't blend at all. Use fresh herbs instead of dry ones because when your fresh herbs are chopped, they impart more flavor into your butter. Don't use too much liquid. It's recommended to only use 1 to 2 teaspoons for your compound butter. Add salt at the end once all your ingredients are mixed into your butter because you can always add more salt, you can't take it out. Never mix compound butter with your hands because the heat from your hands will make the butter melt. Instead, use a spoon or fork. I'm gonna actually use my stand mixer because that's gonna make my life so much easier. Make sure that you've got a big enough bowl to mix all of your ingredients. You don't want your good stuff to be falling out of your bowl. For a more infused flavor to your butter, leave it in the fridge for a day. It's kind of like chili, always better the second day. You can leave compound butter in the fridge for up to a week, but after that you should pop it in the freezer, and they can stay in the freezer for about 3 months. If any of the recipes are different for that, I'll leave that in the description down below. So let's get started with jalapeno, ginger, lime. You're gonna need half a cup of unsalted butter, half a diced jalapeno, 2 teaspoons of lime juice, half a tablespoon of grated ginger, half of a small shallot diced up, a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, and half a teaspoon of salt. If you like your jalapenos and onions to be a little bit more powerful, then just dice them up and pop them right in your butter. But if you don't want them to slap you in the face, then why don't you just saute them along with the ginger, some butter until the onions are translucent. Once they're cool completely, then mix them in with your butter along with everything else. Next we'll do our garlic and herb butter. I read about black garlic in a recipe and that sounded pretty fancy, but I didn't have any where I lived, so I made some roasted garlic of my own. I'll pop that in the recipe down below. If you want to skip that step, then just use 2 cloves of minced garlic. Today I'm using rosemary, thyme, and chives because they complement venison really well, but you can switch up the herbs to whatever you want. And if you want a little bit of zing for this recipe, then just add a teaspoon of lemon juice. You're gonna need half a cup of unsalted butter, 2 to 4 minced garlic cloves, 1 tablespoon each of chopped fresh thyme, rosemary, and chives, and a 1/4 teaspoon each of salt and pepper. Mix everything together and you're good to go. On to red wine rosemary butter. Now if you guys have watched my video where I tried to make a sauce out of red wine just like Gordon Ramsay, then you would have remembered how epically I failed. So why not try it again? For this recipe, you're gonna need half a cup of unsalted butter, 1 tablespoon of fresh chopped rosemary, 1½ cups of red wine, and half a teaspoon of salt. And don't forget some pepper. Take your red wine and you're going to begin to boil it. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes to reduce it from 1½ cups to about an 1/8 cup of wine. Let it cool completely before you add it to your butter. Mix everything together and you're good to go. And lastly, we have our unforgettable maple bourbon butter. This is the one that I was looking forward to making the most, probably because I'm Canadian. You need half a cup of unsalted butter, 1/4 of a large sweet onion diced, 3 tablespoons of bourbon, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, about ½ teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Saute your onion in a pan with some butter until it's translucent. Then add your 3 tablespoons of bourbon. It's going to thicken up actually quite quickly. Then add your maple syrup. Give it a stir and then set it to the side to cool completely. Once it's cooled, add it to your butter along with your salt and pepper and mix it up. To package your butter, you can roll it up in either parchment or plastic wrap. If you're using parchment, put your butter down a line in the middle of your paper. Fold the paper all the way in half, take a muffin tin and roll it against your butter. This will help to spread it out and make it nice and even. Once that roll is nice and tight, then roll it up with the rest of the parchment paper and secure the ends. If you're using plastic wrap, do the same thing. Spread it down the middle of your plastic wrap, fold the plastic wrap over and twist the ends to secure. If you're gonna use the butter the same day, pop it in the fridge for about 30 minutes before you cut it up. You can slice it into about ½ inch rounds and then place it directly on your venison steak. Well, there you have it, incredibly amazing flavor-packed compound butters for you to use with your venison. Let me know down in the comments which one was your favorite. Happy cooking, catch you next time.